Hey, this is Gary.
This is Mike.
And Daniel. We're not professionals. We're just three addicts sharing our experiences, strength, and hope regarding recovery.
Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other addicts and to practice these principles in our lives.
Just a fair warning, there is something in the air this evening as we're recording. So this might be a very interesting episode. As there is definitely,
I think it's
some fun energy. It could be the location too. We are in a different location, but that's okay.
So, are we going to start off with an apology right from the very beginning?
No, I'm
so sorry.
I'm
for this
just letting
podcast.
them know that there might be a different vibe going on. It's not a bad vibe. It just there might be some poking at one another throughout the episode.
Congratulations.
Yes,
It's done out of love
because
I love doing it.
yes. So. The topic we're going to speak about is fear. More importantly,
I was afraid of that.
Yes, you were afraid of that. Is facing fear in your recovery. For myself, I'm dealing with some sponsees right now that have some opportunities that have come forward, but they're kind of afraid to take that step forward because in the past, this type of opportunity has been an avenue for them to act out. And so even though they have, some recovery time, they have new tools and stuff like that, they're still afraid of taking that step forward in fear of falling back into those old habits and patterns, which is a valid fear.
Sure.
But at the same time, at least in my mind, there's been enough time that has happened. There's been enough growth, enough tools gained that those old patterns and behaviors should not be the same. Or if they do come back, we have these recovery hours where we can say, wait a minute, I'm getting too, we're in the warning track area, we're in the middle circle, we're getting too close to our inner circle, I need to step back. Or I have to have a game plan or a safety plan in place so that these things don't happen again.
Just to be clear, they have an opportunity to go back into a situation that is in and of itself not necessarily an unhealthy situation.
Correct.
It's just that in the past they've used that
as an avenue for unhealthy behavior.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for helping us clarify that.
Well,
I was going to say the thing that comes to mind when I think of this is the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
This thing that we talk about here, this hero's journey, this notion that the hero, first of all, didn't want to find themselves in this situation. Certainly didn't want to be thrust into the limelight, into the spot where they're needing to be. Something happens. They learn some things in these difficult moments. They learn some amazing things. And it's in that moment where they're away from the world, if you will. They've learned these valuable lessons. But somehow, some way, those valuable lessons are supposed to, once they re-enter the real world, that those valuable lessons are supposed to help them move forward in a meaningful way. That's the hero's journey, right?
Yes.
And how many millions of movies have been made around that very premise of the hero's journey?
A lot.
So the point is that as I think of the topic of fear, I believe that's valid. I believe somebody's concerned about, well, what would happen if, put back in those same circumstances, would I act again the very same way that I have? And I think that's valid.
Yes.
But I think you hit it right on the head, and that is that you've been sort of plucked out of that universe. You've now learned some amazing things, a handful of tools per se, and those tools are then supposed to help you as you reinsert yourself back into the real world, back into the world that you came out of. And now what's supposed to happen is that you're supposed to move forward in a meaningful way and learn from those things. I'll use an example. A lot of my acting out behavior was when I was traveling. I remember having a conversation with you, Gary, about the fact that you had walked away from a career and a job that you had because there was so much acting out behavior and you felt like it was difficult to go back into. And you may elaborate that on that one when I'm done talking. But it was very interesting to me as we talked about that, because one of the things that you brought up to me is that perhaps it may be time for me to change my career. And I took that home and I thought a lot about that. And I got to tell you, that was difficult for me because I didn't, quite honestly, outside of my own self-employment, I kind of consider myself unemployable, to be quite honest with you. And so I was worried about that. And I can't remember coming home and talking it over with my wife and talking it over with others and saying, I'm not sure I'm cut out for that. I don't know. I wouldn't know what else to do. This is all I know how to do. And maybe that's an exaggeration at that point in time, but it felt that way. And so I had to figure out how it was I was going to tackle this animal of travel and still be safe. Mm-hmm. And what I found is that we've been given the tools. We actually had been through recovery, been given the tools to figure those sorts of things out. And one of the very first things that came up was a safety plan. What am I going to do to make certain that I'm safe and to make certain that my wife is comfortable with the fact that I'm traveling and that I'm being safe? And I will tell you that that's, several years down the path, we are still revisiting some of those safety plans. What makes us feel safe when I travel? What is it that I can do to help her feel comfortable that everything's fine, even several years later? So that's really the hero's journey, is learning something about recovery and being able to apply that in a real life situation. And as a result of that, I've been very safe. I dismantle the TV literally the minute I walk in the room. If I walk into a hotel room, I make the TV a non-functioning piece of machinery. Now, I've not gone so far as to actually remove the TV and take it down the front desk, and I've heard of others who have done that. I've not reached that spot. But I do incapacitate the TV because I don't want to deal with that. And when I know I can't deal with it, I don't worry about it.
Yeah. Now that I was sitting here thinking about it, when all of my stuff came, and everybody knew the business that I was talking to you about, the one where I had my own business and the business, I managed that in a very unhealthy way, and it afforded me a lot of money and a lot of time.
Right.
And I acted out pretty profusely with that kind of stuff. But so that came to an end. And when all of that came to an end and all of my stuff came to light and it was this huge catastrophe, I landed, to their credit and my everlasting gratitude, I was offered a position back in my family's business and my extended family's business. And it gave me a safe place to land. And and I worked there for 10, 12 years, as I was... Well, it would have been 10 years. I'd worked in this place, and everybody there knew what was going on with me. They were family. They were in my circle. They were supportive. I made myself accountable to them, and it was a really, really safe place. But then there came a moment in time when, there was some changes that were being made there, and it just wasn't going to work out for me. I could continue to go there, but there was no way for me to grow or to expand. And I had the opportunity to move out of the family business and go out, but that was going to put me back out into the wild.
Right. The unknown for sure.
The unknown. I was going to go back, and in fact, it would require me to go to a city that was a little bit more removed from my home, and actually a city that I had acted out in a lot, and so once again, now I'm knocking on the door of, now I have some opportunity and some proximity and things like that, but over the course of that time, I found myself, and I was even given an opportunity to open up another business, and I found that when I was presented with those opportunities, I just didn't want to go back to acting out.
Right.
And so I entered into this new business, or this new job that exposed me to a whole lot of different people. And do you know what? Turns out I started building relationships of trust with them, and it put me in a situation where I could actually mentor and help a number of them.
Right.
It opened up a lot of opportunities for me and my family financially, and that's been a really, really good experience. And within less than in a year and a half's time, I more than doubled my income and all of this kind of stuff, and all of this was the life that I'm recovering because I found sobriety, and because I've done this work, these things have opened up to me, and I've been given all of these other opportunities. Now, I could have legitimately been afraid to do it and kept myself where I was. But I think there comes a point in time where you do have to re-enter. We've been calling it the world. You have to re-enter and know that you're different, and that you have a different set of tools, and take advantage of some of the opportunities that this new life is offering.
Right.
You know, another really good example is I remember being without a smartphone for like 8 or 9 years.
A lot of years.
A lot of years. I switched to a flip phone, and it wasn't even and it was kind of funny because my cell phone company was no longer going to support that technology. So I was going to have to come up with something different. So I was looking at different phones, and this also happened about the same time that, a little bit before this new opportunity came up. And my son, he said something very interesting to me. He said, why do you need to hang on to this older phone? He says, if you had a smartphone, would you abuse it? I said, no, I don't think so. No, I don't think I would. And he said, would you take precautions? Yeah, I would. And he said, then why are you hanging on to this? You know what I mean? In fact, he called me out. He says, I think you just like being the guy with the antiquated phone in your group. And I thought I had to stop and think, and I thought,
there's something to that.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe it is time, And do you know what? Taking that, I had again work opportunities and actually service opportunities within my church that required me to have that level of connection and communication. I needed email. I needed a device that could communicate at a much higher level than what I had. And again, that came back into my life, and it's now a tool of making my life better and more convenient. Now I have very clear rules with it, and and I have to use it correctly, but it does have a role in my life, and it's enriched my life. But I had to face the fear and go forward with it.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that up. I woke up this morning like I always do, which is it's dark outside still. I just don't sleep all that well, and I recently I'm back to putting the phone by my bed, which is something I didn't want to do, and so instantly I get on the phone, and of course my wife will wake up and say, hey, your phone's on, what are you doing, which puts her in a bad place, because that's some of the time that I used to act out. But the reason I'm thinking about that is that we often have to reevaluate the controls that we place on some of these things. My provision that I have put in place with that cell phone is it really ought to be charging in a whole nother room, because what happens is if I wake up and I'm stressed and I start looking at the phone, even though I don't have access to the internet or anything like that, I can keep myself in that place of stress that will ultimately lead to, if left unchecked, will ultimately lead to probably acting out behaviors.
Well, and it has its own consequences.
It does.
Mirror that addictive cycle.
That's right.
It increases the anxiety because you're not getting the sleep and things like that.
That's right.
So you've got to be mindful of those kind of things.
All those are important. And so the great thing is that you now have the tools to at least evaluate that, whereas before I didn't. Now I can go back to saying, I had rules around this before, and those rules were meaningful. I used to put it in a whole other room so that when I did wake up in those moments, I could go back to sleep at night instead of looking at the stupid phone. So I think we're constantly reevaluating those things.
So is your phone back in the other room again?
It will be tonight.
All right.
Yeah, it will be tonight. So the point is that fear in and of itself can be healthy, but at the same time, it's not helpful. It can be helpful and healthy in saying, "Hey, I got to pay attention to this sort of stuff." But at the same time, if you've been through a substantial amount of information gathering, how to handle your recovery, it's a great opportunity to put back into place some of those things that can help you out.
Well, I think that's kind of the point. I mean, we work through recovery to regain the life, and there are some things. I have a list of things that I just will not do again.
Right.
Yeah. They're just things I can't do.
Yeah.
And I would say that there have been, as I've, I'm going to go to the 3 circle method. There are a number of things that are in that inner circle that's it. You know,
Yeah, right,
I'm done
right.
with those things for life. But there are a number of things that are in that gray circle, that second circle, middle circle, and some of them have moved over the course of my recovery. Some of them have moved farther
closer in,
right.
and actually some of them have moved
Further
out.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and
Sort of the dynamic nature of all of this. Sure.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so you never want to approach this with any kind of degree of arrogance, because when you think you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, you're setting yourself up for failure. But at the same time, the goal of all of this work is to get you back to living the life that you should, you know?
Right.
And some things you're gonna have to do without them for a while, and they'll come back into your life. And when they have the opportunity to come back into your life, maybe you won't think the same way about them.
Right.
You know what? I just thought of another really good example. I love video games. In fact, I think I had a video game addiction that I started recovery from. I really do. Okay. I've just tons and tons and tons of hours and things like that. And then the first time that I was busted, that was actually something I just stopped cold turkey. I don't know. I just stopped. And I just never touched video games. And then, 10 years later, now keep in mind that I started my sexual addiction recovery for real in 2013. This happened in 2011. So about 8 years into my sexual addiction recovery, I started playing video games again when my youngest two boys got old enough that it could be a social kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I found that those could come back into my life in a degree that it was enriching my life. But my attitude toward them had changed dramatically.
Sure.
You know, I didn't feel any desire to spend hours and hours and hours in this fantasy-based world. You know,
Right.
I could spend a couple hours with them enjoying something that we did together, and that was fine. But so that was something that was very much a really, really dark middle circle kind of
Sure.
activity.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it actually moved out to, now I'd say it's a
Light gray.
light gray, maybe
Almost white.
Almost white.
Yeah.
Well, do you know? I'd even go so far as to say that is the way that I'm doing it. In moderation, a little bit of time. Is actually because it's creating the bonds with my family, and that's why I'm doing it.
More of an outer circle.
I would say
thing
it's
now.
more of an outer
Yeah.
circle thing, and maybe not one that I would want to engage in a whole lot.
Yeah.
But on the occasions that I do, it actually benefits my.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm the same way when it comes to video games. It's mainly when I play, it's with my kids.
Sure.
If I do play with when they're gone, I'm playing with myself. It's 20 minutes. I'm
Yeah.
setting a timer. I play for 20 minutes. Even if I don't accomplish the goal, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
That was my intention. I'm just going to be mindless and play a game for 20 minutes and walk away. And by being intentional like that, it doesn't control my life.
Right.
And it's something I can do and enjoy. And in this type of situation, I mean, your guys' examples have been fantastic. Is we have gained tools, we've gained experience. We've come back into the world, and we shouldn't be afraid to meet those challenges because we are a different person. We're not that same person that we were when we were in our addiction, and so through Recovery Rise, we can start seeing those warning signs coming. As we're traveling down the highway, we can start seeing, warning ahead, potholes or whatever.
This is also going to come back to why you need a really healthy connection with sponsors and
Yeah.
your accountability group.
Right.
That stuff doesn't go away.
Yes.
And you can approach some of these things, and there are some things that really are center, middle, or inner circle stuff that you just need to be done with.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you'll know what they are.
You'll know
Yes.
what those
You'll
are.
know what they are.
Anybody who's done the 3-circle, evaluation knows exactly what those are. I think the important thing is that you can plan for these things too.
Yeah.
So much of my acting out behavior felt like it was sort of, it just happened, right? It wasn't anything and had I spent enough time to maybe plan for, knowing full well that the places I was going to go or the things that I was going to see or do would put me in a difficult situation. And that if I'd planned for those a little better, that perhaps the outcome would have been entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key for your sponsees. I think those that are experiencing fear is that, hey, these are opportunities that are presenting themselves to give you an opportunity to really use the tools that you've been learning about. It's not just a book effort anymore. Now it's real practical application. And what a great opportunity that is. And then secondly, with a little bit of preparation and planning with those around you, that you can actually find yourself being successful. Being successful. And that helps you overcome fear.
Yes.
That helps you overcome fear. To know that you can be successful in those circumstances, because nobody wants to go back to the acting out behavior.
Yeah. Well, and I also wonder if part of the fear is because of the unknown. I mean, that's why we have fear. We're afraid of, well, what if? And until we engage and, with our tools and that to see, will that happen again? We're worry. Instead, just grab your shield and your sword, step into it, and see what happens, and see how strong you have become. And once you realize, wow, I am stronger, a stronger person, then that moment is not going to have as much strength, and you're going to be able to do this over and over and realize, okay, I am in a good place. I have made
I've made
the effort.
I've moved forward in lots of big ways.
Yeah.
The other piece of it too is I don't like to be motivated by fear. It's something that I personally just don't like. I'd prefer to live my life not motivated by fear. I know that fear exists in a lot of places, but I would prefer to recouch that, right? To rethink of that and say, well, look, fear it's valid. There's a relevant piece to this, but I'm a smart enough guy. I can get past this, or I've got a big enough group of support to be able to help me work through that. Maybe that's the other thing they need to do, is maybe they need to include a handful, their counselor, or they're obviously reaching out to you as their sponsor. Yeah. But reach out to others who are going through similar things.
It just occurred to me with this new promotion, I have another one of these moments coming up.
Wow.
I have a conference I have to travel for.
Okay.
All right. And that's in a month and a half, 2 months time. Now I haven't traveled. I used to travel and go to school, and I would act out on those journeys. And now here I am, and my wife and I are now having discussions. Says, well, you've got to go to this conference, and this is the time frame, and this is new for both of us. I haven't had to do something like this, but now I'm in a situation where I do. Is this going to be? And so we started talking about options. She says, would you like me to come with you? And I says, of course you're welcome to come with me.
But I have to be able to demonstrate I can do this on my own too.
Well, there's some of that too. I said, but I don't want you to come because you feel like you have to babysit me.
Right.
I mean, if you need to come for peace of mind, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we've been actually having this discussion quite a bit about how are we going to approach this in a healthy way and make sure that I'm in a healthy place, that she's in a healthy place, and that we handle it with plan and care, because it's going to be a new experience for both of us.
Yeah.
And so I'll keep you guys in the loop as to what that happened. Or
it's fun that you're talking about it now, though.
Oh yeah.
I
just found out about it, so and so we're still having that discussion. I said, and anyway. So we're having that discussion, and I'll let you guys know how that goes. It's been really interesting, because she'll ask me questions like, well, has a thought occurred to you that you could act out? And I said, well, not in a way that I want to take advantage of it. In fact, I really have no desire to at all. I really don't. It's just so much, it would be so much trouble and such a nightmare. But I've also been very careful with her, saying, I don't want to do or say anything that's going to give you the impression that I do not want you to go.
Right.
You know, and so, it's been very interesting, but we've been very open and honest about our thoughts and feelings, and we're just kind of weighing options and making plans and things like that.
Well, I mean, and it kind of ties back to what Mike said about developing a safety plan. You guys are discussing and coming up with a plan of, okay, this is the opportunity. This is what we're going to do. This is what I'm going to do to keep me safe. This is what I'm going to do to keep you safe. This is what I'm going to do to keep us safe.
Right.
Here's something I thought of as well. It's been my experience so far that when I include my wife in that discussion very early on, that it builds a level of confidence in us and in me from her that makes me head out in the field a whole lot more better prepared than when I used to, if that makes any sense, right? It engenders in her a whole sense more that, hey, guess what? He's in a different place. He would have never ever talked to me before about about where he's at and what's going on. To have that conversation beforehand and say, I will do this and I will do that. I will reach out to you every time I have to go meet with somebody. Some of the work that I do takes me in often cases it takes me into a bar, or it may take me into a some place to go get a drink, go get a coffee or whatever, which I'm not a coffee drinker. So to find myself in a coffee location to be there with, in a lot of cases it's women who are doing the work that I have to interact with. I'm there at a coffee shop with women. I can imagine that my wife is like, so I have to make provisions for that. I have to let her know, look, I will let you know when I'm there, what I'm doing, what's going on. I'll let you know that I'm at this particular location and all these sorts of things. And as soon as it's over, I'll call you. And that's generated a tremendous amount of mutual trust. That's putting trust back into my marriage that wasn't there before.
Yeah. So we've discussed options like, maybe I should extend the stay a couple days, and we could make a weekend of it.
All good things,
that might justify the cost of you coming. And if anyway, there's a lot of things that we're discussing.
Lots of things.
Yeah, it's great.
So anyway, I think it's a great topic. I think it's fantastic that you've got some sponsees that want to talk to you about that particular topic. And it's actually a healthy place. It is. I would suspect that where they're at in their recovery, that this is a relevant topic for them, and I think that's great.
Yeah. And there should be conversations like this every time you come up against one of these opportunities for growth. And there should be a lot of honest self-evaluation.
No, I mean, in this particular, in one of them, I let them know, because they were like, I just think I'm not going to do it. I'm like, why? Why not take this opportunity? Because you've made a lot of growth. You have the tools, you have the experience. Why not, jump forward on this and see what happens? Because, why be so afraid and not take the opportunity and now live in regret, which then, resentment can build. Sure. And that could spin you right back into the very place that you're afraid of going.
That's right.
So we'll see what they decide to do.
So, I think it's very wise that you have that discussion so you know your whys.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why don't you want to do this?
Yeah. Sure.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
All right. Well, we are out of time. Time flies.
That was nowhere near as silly as I thought it was going to be.
No. That's okay.
Did you see how serious we got there?
We got. But, who knows? Next episode, you might be poking more fun at one of us.
What a bunch of sober-minded individuals you guys are.
So,
well, it took you a minute to get there, but congratulations.
There it is.
I see what you did.
There goes the jab.
Congratulations.
All right, folks. Well, again, hopefully you found this topic useful for you wherever you are in your recovery.
Yeah.
As always, if you do have any thoughts, concerns, questions, feel free to reach out to us. We love hearing from our listeners. And with that said, find the humility in your recovery.
Very good. This is Mike saying do the work necessary to find the peace that recovery can bring.
And this is Gary saying do the next right thing.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.
As a fellowship of recovering addicts, Sex Addicts Anonymous offers a message of hope to anyone who suffers from sex addiction. Check out saa-recovery.org.